Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Brady. I'm here with Werner Vogels, who is the Chief Technology Officer of Amazon, and we are talking about his predictions for 2024. Werner, good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. And I'm very excited to talk about it.
Yeah, well, before we start, let me ask about the genesis of these predictions. I know they're much awaited. How long have you been doing them for?
Well, I think probably 6, 7, 8 years now. But what happened is, of course, that especially with AWS and so many businesses running on top of AWS, you kind of start seeing larger patterns happening. And if you look at the more innovative, newer businesses, you see where their interests are. So I have a unique opportunity to sort of aggregate that knowledge of our customers and then sort of start to think about what kind of advice would I give to CIOs or CTOs that are thinking about sort of what should I be focusing on.
So let's talk about the predictions for next year. What do you see on the horizon?
Well, I think the first and foremost one, it's hard these days, of course, to not talk about AI. Yeah, there's always some level of impact that we'll see in technology coming up. But, I always try to pick a few predictions that are, let's say, not obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of discussion about generative AI and where it is going. But I think I was at the AI for Good conference by the UN earlier in Geneva.
Mm-hmm.
And there I really start to understand what sort of the issues are that the larger community has. And one of these is, of course, that the current large language models are mostly trained on English data or Western data, and mostly in English. Yeah, and even though we can do really well do translation into other languages, but the corpus underneath there still is very Western. And the example I always like to give that, if you ask an English core large language model to summarize a book by Isabella Allende, you probably get a very different answer from a book that would from a large language model that would be trained on South American content. Yeah, and I such a thing that is really crucial and important. And there's this indeed a good example by these guys from the researchers from Georgia Tech that indeed demonstrated that even if a model is trained on Arabic text, or then you can get a culturally accurate response if you give advice. Not something that you would get if you would actually do this on a Western one. So it's very important, I think, for a worldwide audience to be able to get access to large language models that also incorporate their culture.
Well, one thing that, let's unpack that a little bit. First of all, if it's only being trained on English language models, does that mean that countries in which English is the dominant language currently have an advantage in AI, or is that going too far?
No, I think of course, the quality of all these large language models is about the data.
Right.
That goes actually for all AI, not only for large language models. The better the quality of the data is, that will be reflected eventually in the model. And the largest data set that was available is Common Crawl. And that is dominantly English and Western texts. And I said, yes, that's where they trained on. But that's also why you now see many other countries, and whether that is in the United Emirates or in India or in China and Japan and South Korea, where you get these new large language models that are all trained on local texts and in their native language. So yeah, I see that there is a culture shift happening there. And of course, we are looking in research continuously whether these large language models can learn from each other. Yeah, and it's one of whether it's through reinforcement learning or through multi-agent debate, that these models basically talk to each other and sort of try to figure out what is the right answer. And as such, then create feedback loops again to update the models themselves.
That seems scary, disintermediating the humans completely. The models talk to each other, but I get it. I'm not a fear monger. I'm actually very excited about AI. So this prediction then is very much that we will, in essence, democratize these large language learning models by essentially bringing in other languages?
Also, yeah, and absolutely. And of course, the approach that we've taken at Amazon is to try and democratize access to these large language models. Now, the dominant ones at these moments are already available through Amazon Bedrock, but I expect that there will be many more in the future, and hopefully one with different cultural backgrounds.
So if I'm a CIO or CTO watching this, what's the actionable aspect of that? Is it to really be aware of the fact that the landscape is changing, or is it to be aware of the fact that the landscape is currently very limited, so be careful about what you're using?
Absolutely. I think it's also what I would like them to take away with from this is that research is happening to try and solve this problem, but you should realize what the limitations of the current models are. Yeah, understand. And definitely, if you run maybe a worldwide operation or something that incorporates environments with many different cultures, but you should be aware that the answers that you're getting from the current models may be restricted in terms of culture.
Right.
And
Good point.
And after all, and that goes for all AI, there's still assistance. We as humans make decisions. We need to interpret the answers that are coming back and decide what we do with that.
Yeah.
We don't let these machines, decide for us.
So that's prediction number one. Any other? What are some of your other predictions?
Well, one of them, and I'm very happy that that's actually happening. I really see sort of women healthcare technology to support women healthcare really taking off. We've seen significant investments in women-led startups, and quite a few of those are tackling issues that are specific for women health. If you and while doing research on this topic, where I was looking at sort of what's the history here of women healthcare? Is there indeed a big differentiation between general healthcare and that? And I found out that actually there were no real women clinical trials for women until I think 1993. Before that, they were not allowed to take part.
Right, because of the risk to their
of course,
fertility and such.
That's in general, but also as such, the rest was excluded from it. And I think there's a number of issues that have been sort of not tackled because there was stigma or taboo around it. Take an issue like menopause, which almost every woman will go through, yet it's hard to discuss it. And as such, technology solutions as well as medical solutions are still at the forefront. They still need to happen. All the hormone replacement therapies at the moment are quite broad still. And I believe this is an area definitely where we will see much more precision medicine happening over time, uniquely targeting the issues that some of the women have.
No, that's a good point.
It's not just an issue of many women that go through menopause think that they have dementia, or many other cases. And so also because there's no conversation around this, not much has been done on it. But we see a clear shift happening there, and whether that is in building devices or wearables or a lot of data-driven targeted healthcare. I believe really off the brink of really shifting there.
I'm curious with that particular prediction, Werner. Do you think it's mainly because of the advances in technology and obviously, a lot going on just in terms of, biologics, is that how you call it? And genome research and such. But how much is it also due to just a cultural shift? We're talking more about mental health. It feels like there's just more of an opening to be talking about what were previously sensitive topics, like you mentioned, menopause.
Absolutely. I think there's a cultural shift happening, which, of course, allows these investments to happening in these companies as well. These issues are, I think, extremely important, but we're able to talk about it more broadly now. And I think definitely, things in around menopause, for example, have seen significant publications over the past 2 years, getting it more into sort of the general conversation. But there was an interesting TV series, I think, on the BBC that actually started with that this woman is going to her physician and she says, it is actually a male that has to tell me that I'm in a menopause. Yeah, why aren't there more conversations among women ourselves? Yeah, why don't we learn more about that? And I think that has become a significant driver in the rise of female health technology.
Yeah. So is in some ways that almost sounds like an investment thesis. It certainly sounds like something that is good to be aware of with regard to consumer behavior. You've got access to a mountain of data around these areas. Are you seeing anything in purchase patterns or anything else that would be indicative of this shift towards more of a focus on women's health?
I don't think I have any insight in purchase patterns and things like that. That's not necessarily something that we track. But I do track the number of startups, for example, in this space, and what are they focused on. Yeah, and how much the fact that we now all have this mobile device in our hand, what are the kind of things that we can do with that to, in general, in healthcare, kind of make progress. And of course, AI is going to play a role in this as assistants to doctors. I just read that report on in Sweden. There is this national healthcare that motivates women to, I think, to have a mammogram each 2 or 3 years. And of course, these doctors that need to look at hundreds of thousands of these images. And it turns out that an AI assistant that have been built for them, actually detects 30% more cancer potentials.
I believe that.
And they are as good as 2 radiologists actually reviewing those images.
Yeah.
So technology will play an extremely important role there.
Yeah, I think precision medicine is very exciting. Okay, so prediction number 3. I don't know how many you have this year, but what else do you have?
4.
4, okay. Now 4 is a lot.
Now I need to actually look at my papers as well. No, the third one is, again, going back to AI. I think about 2 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, I wrote about the rise of the use of AI technology to support developers. And mostly at that moment, we were still thinking about helping them write code. Yeah, because the common pattern among engineers is, I'll ask a question on Stack Overflow, or I'll look at the documentation here and then do copy and paste. And so as such a pattern was there that we could already start building for, and tools like Code Whisperer and Copilot and others become quite successful targeting that. But what we see is that there's a room for the whole software trajectory. One of the things I was thinking about this morning is that how many of the original engineers that built Amazon S3 are still on that team? How much institutional knowledge is there? And I think the room with new large language model support for a broader set of software technologies allows us to have a conversation, to explore, to have, for example, new engineers that come onto the team to understand the complete code base, decisions that have been made, challenges that there are, and to help them make plans how to attack a particular problem. So it goes much beyond just the heavy lifting. It goes to the much bigger software picture. And if I look at sort of where sometimes our engineers have to spend significant amount of time on is when sort of software infrastructure changes for them. I give the example in the prediction of going from Java 7 to a next generation of Java. And then it turns out that's not just recompiling something that makes significant changes to software. It's just busy work.
Yeah.
Now, this doesn't contribute to the product that you're building. And as such, I feel that we're quite well on our way to start to deliver technologies that can help throughout the whole software lifecycle.
So let me unpack that a little bit, because I know that obviously a lot of CIOs are very interested in your prediction. So let's say I'm in that position. obviously I know AI is transformative across the entire corporation with regard to getting rid of that busy work, as you call it. When you talk specifically about, in essence, the IT function, do you see more transformation there over the next year than you would in some of the other functions, across the company?
I think I definitely think that we had a start in this area. Why? Because we started thinking, of course, when we had these larger models, to start to think about how would it help ourselves. Yeah. Also as a very good test case. So I do think that sort of the support for software development is ahead of quite a few other areas, and I believe that will only grow. We'll
Okay.
start to realize. For example, if you hire someone that just comes out of college, he or she is not a full-blown developer yet. He has to learn a lot. You have to learn the practices of the team. You have to learn about how the code was written. Maybe you even have to learn a different programming language.
So this can accelerate it in essence, which is great.
Yeah, it's as if there was a senior engineer looking over your shoulder the whole time and help you.
That sounds both daunting and helpful. A senior engineer looking over your shoulder. I think that's interesting. So let me get to number 4 before, because I would like to get the full picture of what Werner Vogel is seeing for 2024.
Well, one of the things that I've seen, it's an observation that I've had over the past years, where more and more, when I see engineers coming out of university, coming out of school, to still need to learn a lot when they end up in the job. They're not a developer yet. Yeah, they have their basic skills, but they're not like teamwork. And there's so many things that they have to learn, that there is always significant on-the-job training. And one of the challenges I think that we've also seen in IT in the recent years is that we still have a lot of open positions. Yeah, I recently was in Germany, and there they told me that 80,000 open IT positions. Not all of them require a 4-year degree. And as such, although I'm not saying that the 4-year degree doesn't have any value. No, I actually think it has tremendous value.
The almost apprenticeship model, the skills-based learning, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And as such, I think there is more education going to happen outside of the universities. Yeah, if I look, for example, there's a school in Berlin that I visited called the Ready School.
Yeah.
And they are teaching refugees. Germany has taken in 1 million refugees. Quite a few of them are already educated, but not in technology. So they give a 1-year schooling to actually introduce them into technology. And almost everyone has a job even before they leave the school.
Yeah.
So I do believe there is